Hello and welcome to another video by Help You Excel. Today I'm going to show you how to load data from Microsoft Access into Microsoft Excel based on some user selections. So the first thing that I did to make this happen is I wrote a function that will load data from Access into a worksheet in Excel. And I will link to my blog entry where this code is available. It's free for your use. All I ask is that you leave this credit section at the top. Okay. In order for this code to work, you will need to add a reference to the Microsoft Activex data objects, abbreviated as ADO. I say x.x because your version may differ from mine. So to do that, you go up here to References. I've already added it, which is right here. Mine is 6.1. If it's not checked, which it won't be by default, so we'll go in here. And I'm going to go down to Microsoft. Active Data Objects 6.0. The objects library. Did I do the right reference? I think I did the wrong reference. Record set library. Yeah, not the record set library. Microsoft Active Objects 6.1. Here we go. And you'll see I've got different versions in here. I want the most recent version. Typically, you will want the most recent version. Okay, so I've added my reference. I'm just going to walk you through what this code does real quick. So you pass into this function the file path where your access database is located, a worksheet variable for what worksheet you want your data to go to, and then a SQL statement to run against that database. So first we're just dimensioning some variables. This will hold my connection to the database. This will store the record sets that are returned from the database. This is just a string for my connection string. This is a field variable, and then I for a counter. So first I'm just instantiating my two variables. Here I'm creating my connection string. I'm using here application.version. If your version of Excel and Access match, this will be fine. If for some reason it didn't, like let's say your Excel is version 15 and Access is version 16 or whatever, you can just put in here what your application version is for Microsoft Access. Okay, data source equals, here's that file path that we passed into the function right here. Next, it's going to attempt to open the connection string. Define your cursor, then it is going to open a record set, and it's going to use the SQL that you passed in, the connection variable that we opened here. We're going to tell it we want static. We're not trying to do two-way or read-write, and we're going to read only our lock. Okay, we're going to shut off screen updating for Excel. That'll just make things happen a little faster. The worksheet, it is going to clear everything that's there. So this function assumes that everything on this worksheet is your data from Access. If you want to do something different, you can write in here to clear only a certain range, that sort of thing. Usually when I import from Access, I import one record set into one worksheet in Excel. So I can just clear the whole worksheet and it'll refresh based on what I've loaded in. Okay, next, we're going to copy from record set. So that's going to copy everything from my record set into Excel starting at A2. The reason I start at A2 is this, when you do this, it will not include the field names. Okay, so row 1, I'm going to want my field names. That's what I'm doing here. So this is just going to loop through the fields in the record set for each field in rs.fields. Doing a counter, ws.cells. So this is row 1, column I. So the first time through, column 1, second time through, column 2, etc. And it's going to put the field.name in there. Closing our record set, setting equal nothing, close my connection, set that equal to nothing. And then I'm turning on auto filter and I'm auto fitting. Down here's my error. So at the beginning I had on error go to error underscore load. So if there's any errors connecting to the database or your SQL statement's not valid, it'll jump you down here and it'll return a true false. So if error number equals 0, that means there were no errors. It will return a true value. If there's any error, it will return false. And then we turn application.screen updating back on. I put that in my error handler to make sure so that even if there's an error somewhere up here, application screen updating will still get turned on. Otherwise, it'll look like your Excel is frozen, which can be really frustrating. So I'm going to show you how to use this function real quick. I've got a copy of the Northwind database on my C drive that I'm going to use for this. And it is located there. So you just do a simple string telling me where your file is at. In this case, actually tab 2, I want this in tab 2, not tab 3. You can use the worksheet name as well if you'd rather do that. I oftentimes use the index number. You can do it that way too. Same exact thing is going to happen. Okay, so I tell it where the access database is, I tell it what worksheet I want it to go on, and I tell it what data I want to select from the database. So now all I have to do, load data, str file path. I always prefer named parameters. It makes it easier to read your code. Okay, so I'm going to step through this. So just my path, setting my worksheet, doing my SQL. It's going to step in here. It's going to set a connection. And this is just a placeholder for my connection. It hasn't opened it yet. Same with record set. Now it's actually opening the connection to the database and setting a cursor option. Here it's actually opening my record set, turning on screen updating. I'm actually going to turn that back on so that I can show you intermediary stuff. So first it's going to clear the range. So if we look on my data tab, there's nothing there. It's going to copy from the record set. And you'll notice I said A2, so it copies. A2 will become the top left of your data. No field headings. This is where this part is going to go through. So ID, just do a couple of them. So you see it's adding in the field names now. It's going to close the record set, uninstantiate, close the connection, uninstantiate, and now using the used range entire column, it's going to turn on auto filter. So that turns on your auto filter, which is a convenience, and it will auto fit so that everything fits. And there you go. So if you have this function, then, I mean, just a few lines of code, you can load anything from Access into your workbook. Okay. Now, I said I wanted to load data based on user selection, though. So what I've done is I've set up this tab where the user can enter some data. So the first thing they do is they tell me what person type. Do they want to look at customers or employees? Okay. There is, in the Northwind database, there's a table called employees. There's a separate table called customers. So when I made this change, what's happening in the background on the lookup tab is it is loading in here every distinct title on the customers table. So you'll see my lookup values right now, assistant, manager, etc. If I change this to employees, these values are now going to be different. Okay, different job titles. I have also set up a, oops, wrong button, dynamic named range called job title. This range will grow and shrink depending on the number of rows in the job title list. Okay, the way I do that is with the offset formula. Start on cell A2, go down 0, go over 0 columns. Here's where the magic happens. Count A in column A. So it's going to count how many rows in column A have a value. -1 because I want to exclude the header. So count A -1, and then comma 1 tells it 1 column wide. So that becomes that range. Now how I'm using that is my job title drop down here. I can choose a certain job title. So if I change this to customers, you will see my list changes. If I change it to employees, my list changes again. Now the next thing I did is I added a button that will load the data that I have selected. So if I choose customers and I want just the owners, I can click load data. Doesn't look like anything happened, but if you look on the data tab, okay, these are, what did I say, customers, yep, with a job title of owner. And you'll see every job title is in fact owner. If I change this to purchasing assistant, click again, you'll see they only have the title purchasing assistant. If I change this to employees, I get a different list of options. Let's say I want the sales representatives. Now I see only, what did I say, employees? Only employees with the title sales representative. Now let me show you how I did that. Go back here real quick. All right, so if I go to my user selection, first thing I did was on the worksheet change event. This is where I'm loading in the job titles. Okay, so this event will trigger anytime any value changes on this worksheet, and I'll show you that. So anywhere on this worksheet, if I change something, that triggers this event. Okay, but I only want to actually do something if cell B2 has changed. So in this case, the target address was E4, nothing happens. Okay, but if I change the value to B2, okay, now it's going to check and see, does B2 have a length of greater than 0 characters? Oh, my comment's off because I shifted cells earlier. It should be B2. Okay, it does. There's actually a value there. So we're going to set the worksheet. This is where the data is going to go. So if you look here, lookup is the third. So I want my data to go to the third worksheet. Here's my SQL statement, select distinct job title from, and we're going to get the table name based on user selection. Okay. And then I'm just going to call my function that we've already done. So we're going to do all the things we've already done. I've shown you how this works. And then it's going to set the value of the cell 1 row down equal to nothing, because when this value no longer applies to customers, it was an employee value. So I'm going to set that to nothing, which actually triggers this event again, but because the target is not B2, nothing will happen this time. So now what I've done is in this button, it will load the data based on what you've selected. So the code for that is right here. I didn't give my button a meaningful name, which you should always do, but I didn't. I was being lazy. So some variables: my SQL, table name, job title, table name equals NZ range B2 empty set. So basically it's saying if B2 is null, do empty set, assign that value to table name. If the length of the table name is greater than 2, you can adjust this length. I'm just using that as a reasonable table length. Northwind database does not have any table names with fewer than 2 characters in it. So you could adjust this based on the expected values. Okay, job title, I'm doing the same thing I did up here. I'm saying if B3 is null, give me empty set, load that into job title. SQL equals select star from table name, so based on user selection. If len job title is greater than 1, so in other words, if they've selected a job title, then I add a where statement to my SQL, where job title equals character 34 is a double quote. Here's my job title that my user selected. Here's another double quote. Then SQL becomes the original SQL statement with the SQL where tagged on. If they've left job title blank, SQL where will be blank, so nothing will get tagged on. And then we're going to call our same function that we used before. So let's let this run, and I'll show you how this all works together. So for now, I'm going to leave that blank. So if you leave this blank, it'll show you every record from the customers table. So click, table name is customers, job title is blank, I left it blank. So my len for my job title is not greater than 1, so it's just going to skip this line of code, which means SQL where is just empty set. So SQL equals my original statement, which is here, and SQL where, which is empty set, and then we tag on the semicolon on the end, which technically is optional, but I always use it. Some SQL syntax does require it, Access doesn't. So step into this. I'm just going to step out of this because I know this function works. I've shown you how it works. End if. Okay, so what we end up with on our data table now, it will show me all the records from the customer table. And there you go. There's all the records from the customers table. If I change this to employee, click again, now it's all my records from the employee table. If I want a certain title, sales manager, click, and now it will only load my sales managers. Okay, and you could add more criteria here. You could add as many as you want, and then it will load. You just have to add in some extra conditions into your code. So if you had multiple criteria, you'd have to do something like this again, where job title, if you had another one like, I don't know, email address equals NZ, blah, 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 whatever range it's in, right? Of course, that's going to yell at me because it's not valid code. And then you could do, equals if len email, blah, blah, blah. And then you could modify your SQL where statement accordingly until you build your criteria just the way you want it. Pass that SQL statement into your function, and it'll load that data for you. Okay, so very useful function there that you can reuse lots of different ways. It's available on the website, huxl.com. I will link to it in this video description. Feel free, like I said, reuse it as much as you like. I just ask that you leave this in the this little comment section, accrediting it to me. Otherwise, happy coding. I hope this video has helped you. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me at paul@huxl.com. You visit our website, huxl.com. I am also available to build custom Microsoft Access applications, Excel programs, any of those sorts of things. Give me a holler. We'll we'll meet, we'll figure out your requirements, and I'll get you a quote. That first consultation is absolutely free, no obligation. Meet with me, I'll tell you yay or nay, I can help you, I'll give you a quote, and we can go from there. If you like this video, please give it a like, and if you want to see more like this, subscribe to my channel. I'm posting new content pretty regularly. Thank you.